Hi, this is Billie Beene here with another segment of U.S. News by Billie, episode 29. Today's date, June 19, 2023. Happy Juneteenth. We celebrate the end of slavery at the end of our Civil War in 1865, Juneteenth. Our banks are closed today, as is the federal government. Okay. Some of the things we'll cover. U.S. military are now in 30-plus states. CCP is inside the U.S. The Mexican military is at our border. And Israel and the New World Order. And some things going on in the U.S. Some of my sources are God and the Bible, Patriot subscribers, Israeli News Live with Stephen Benoon, WION, Beforeitsnews, Stewart Best, of Best and Taylor, a website, Resist the Mainstream, Hal Turner. So let's get started. I had a lot of Patriot subscribers. Okay, in Midland and Odessa, Texas, underground, things have been going on for decades. Remember Rachel/Ray Chandler, Walter Pierce, Midland Modeling Agency, G.H.W. Scherf and Bush, and their friends began to live in this area decades ago. I'm going to save that for some more research. See what all is going on with that. As a Patriot subscriber, we've had chaotic weather. We know that we have a space event that's also impacting Earth. So on Saturday, June 17, Oklahoma was hit with 100-mile-per-hour winds in eastern Oklahoma and Tulsa area. The government has said, stay home. We have a lot of, and the water park in that area has been wiped out. I have another Patriot subscriber. It's talking about the U.S. military in Canada. In my last video, I was talking about events that happened on the U.S.-Canadian border in December of 2020. We had two incidents, and the U.S. military and the Maine, Canada underground area took out 55,000 CCP, and in the Dakota, Canada area underground, the U.S. military took out 25,000 CCP. Both of these happened in December of 2020. And I have two Patriot subscribers who add information to that. So the first one says the U.S. military in Canada have only, currently are only going to Montreal. And this is talking about the current U.S. military that's moving into Canada in Montreal, but they've spray painted over their regiment and information on their vehicles. Well, that's new information. Okay, I have a Patriot subscriber. He's talking to the second one, talking about what's going on in Oklahoma and the storms over the weekend, 100-mile-per-hour wind. Heavy rain and floods, old trees. Both of them talked about old trees being uprooted. And that there's only 75 crews in Oklahoma to begin working. And AT&T and other fiber optic companies are also down. This is the worst storm in 13 years. Okay, I have a Patriot subscriber who says, I live near a military base in Bedford, Massachusetts. Saturday, we had a lot of planes in and out. Today, on Sunday, it's quiet. And we have this. I have a Patriot subscriber who says, I live in Montana, and recently I saw a caravan of a large number of U.S. military vehicles. They were moving east on I-90. So that would have been east from Montana. Okay. I have a Patriot subscriber who says, I saw 4 to 5 armored vehicle columns moving south, and this is in Michigan, near I-127 on Saturday. Okay, another Patriot subscriber. I'm very excited. It's awesome news about the military taking these actions inside our nations. For the last few years, since 2020, we've been in limbo. And it's good to realize that God is in charge and President Trump will be back soon, and the deep state, satanic deep state, will be gone. I have a Patriot subscriber. U.S. military are in California. They're in Oakland, San Francisco, and all the way up the coast to Alaska. Okay, now we'll move on to some information from Stewart Best. He has intel sources because we're all curious what is going on. We can only rely on the alternate news to give us the real news because the mainstream media is controlled by the deep state. Okay, so Stewart Best, he's the author of Iron Mountain, and he's coming out with a new book, Earthfall, so it'll be interesting. Okay, he's talking about, one, the U.S. military is taking action, and it looks like JB will be out soon. We know that's actually the deep state government. And he's putting forth, is this actually a coup we're seeing? Well, I don't see how it could be a coup when it's actually being put forth on behalf of the American people and the president they actually elected. Yeah, I don't think that's a coup. All right, we have Russia talking about any NATO base that sends up the F-16s. Russia is going to assume that these are F-16s armed with nukes, and they're going to respond in kind to wherever the source is for that F-16 taking off in Europe, the U.S., or the U.K. And Stewart says, if that happens, there's a dead man operation that would take place, operated by AI. In other words, if one nation puts out nukes, another nation responds in kind, no one wins. So that's going on. Now, Stewart is putting this forth that there may be some action related to that NATO exercises going on now near Ukraine with the military, NATO militaries and the planes. And he's mentioning ET in Las Vegas. So, I mean, that's one thing that's coming up. Now, Stewart is putting this forth, the U.S. military's in 30 states, and he is wondering and putting forth, is this an operation? No, he's bringing forth this new intel, that this is an operation to spread out the U.S. military, and it's going to take another 4 to 5 days. So we can see in the U.S. another 4 to 5 days movement of the U.S. military spreading out from the U.S. military bases in anticipation of possible hits by Russia and China. Okay, we have the U.S. and he's putting forth this intel. The U.S. military expects there will be attacks on U.S. cities. And it's the U.S. military's job to spread out, to maintain as many U.S. military troops and equipment in safe positions, and also to lock down the American people in the event of an attack. This is also new intel from Stewart Best. War is expected to go kinetic, a hot shooting war in North America and in Canada. So we need to prep and pray. And now we have this from Israeli News Live's Stephen Beene. Stephen was formerly with the CIA, now as a ministry, but regularly gets updates from the Pentagon. He's confirming. So Stephen confirms the U.S. military is in American cities. We're up to 30 plus American U.S. states. And he's identifying multiple reports coming out of Idaho, Florida, Canada. Now, Stephen is putting this forth. The reason is the U.S. military is conducting drills on U.S. civilian streets. And he's putting this forth. We can expect the early broadcast system, which would be a nationwide alert system, to go on. We can anticipate that happening, and it's going to be operated by an AI system. And he's saying that there's AI involved in the probability of hits. This would be by Russia and China. And the probability is high for military strikes on the U.S. and Germany by October or November of 2023. So this is the intel he's receiving. And he's putting this out on the northern border. We have Canada. We have Mexico. So on our north border, he's confirming this. CCP are here. I have additional information I'll bring out in this episode about Mexico, CCP on our southern border. And now we have this. Right. And Stephen is bringing this out about the Israeli government. So we have things happening in the U.S. and also Israel. And it's good to have a clear perspective. So we have the U.S., we have Israel on a map. We have the deep state operating both. This one, I think, is Rothschild, and this one is Rockefeller. But these are both deep state. And they have a joint program that they're trying to put in place. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu is still trying to take down inside Israel the court system, the judicial system. And he's saying he will bypass the Israeli government to get it done. Well, the only way to do that then is you bring in mercenaries, you have your own army, you go against the citizens of Israel, and you go against the military of Israel. So baby Netanyahu is saying he's going to get this done. I don't believe the people of Israel are going to tolerate this, and the Israeli military has sided with the people. So we can expect inside Israel something also like a coup-like activity going on. And now we have this. Yeah, that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to collapse the government and go around the government and the people himself. I don't see that happening. So, and we have WION says, documenting Netanyahu wants to go around and take down the judicial system this week. So we see the deep state is trying to take over the government in Israel, and at the same time in the U.S. have the American people distracted by what's going on in their streets. So yeah, that's going on. Okay, I have a Patriot subscriber talking about Hiroshima and also talking about Wuhan. So we know this was World War II, and this was 2020 with the C virus. Talking about the deep state came against Hiroshima in World War II and Wuhan, China in 2020, because these were both areas that had significant Christian populations. Okay, I have another Patriot subscriber who says, I live near the border. Now, these are the two who remember what happened at the U.S.-Canada border in 2020. I live near the border of U.S. and Canada in Maine, New Brunswick. And I have a clear memory of 2020 earthquake, and I believe it was a rod from God that was used. 50,000 Chinese troops were underground and on the move, and they were taken out. I have a second witness for this same event. A 4.0 earthquake was reported in Maine about 9 a.m. This would have been in December in 2020. 50,000 Chinese were taken out. And also, there were some underneath a lake that would be inside the U.S., and they were trying to take over Maine via a tunnel. That's right. And the report was there were tens of thousands of Chinese troops, plus, this is new information to me, UN troops were also trying to invade the U.S. That would have been in December of 2020. And also that there were CCP underground in Washington State. That's also new information. And that the U.S. government had restricted the Native American, the First Nation people inside Canada and also the state of Washington from going into a national park, and that this is new information to me for this area, that a rod from God was also dropped in this area in December of 2020. That would be the Canada border and Washington state, to also take out CCP. So, new information. And now we have this from Stephen Ben-Nun, Israeli News Live, talking about the CCP inside the U.S. And we have also the CCP is working with the Mexican cartels. And we understand now, I had that recent information, it's only about half of the cartels are still working with CCP. About half of the cartels are now working with the White Hats. Okay. So, Stephen Ben-Nun is saying that Russian nukes could be used on the U.S. East Coast. Okay. So we have the U.S., we've got the East Coast, like the New York area, and the West Coast, like California. Stephen Ben-Nun is verifying that on the East Coast, we have Russian subs. On the West Coast, we have Chinese subs. I think we've been hearing that information. Now, Stephen Ben-Nun puts forth again that the U.S. military inside the U.S., spreading out all these states, is actually doing practice for war. and that there are situations going on almost like a takeover or overthrow of the U.S. government, and that would be the white hats over the black hats. That would include JV the actor and the CIA, and that this is also tied to the action going on with Netanyahu trying to dissolve and collapse the Israeli government and take it over himself on behalf of the deep state. And now we have this from Resist the Mainstream. The CCP is inside the U.S. and they're called so-called Chinese Overseas Service Centers. They're operating in the open, protected by the deep state inside the U.S. They're housed in U.S. NGOs. In other words, the deep state U.S. government is giving a cover for these CCP intel offices inside the U.S. Now, recently, and I reported this, that was a report from Joshua Phillip about 2 Chinese spies being arrested. That's true. And now we have this coming out. These are the locations of the CCP intel, like the Chinese CIA offices. They're in San Francisco, California, Houston, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska, Salt Lake City, Utah, St. Louis, Missouri, Charlotte, North Carolina, St. Paul, Minnesota. So that's going on. And now we have this new intel from Hal Turner. Hal was formerly with the FBI, worked with the FBI and CIA for about 15 years in anti-terror. So he has a lot of intel contacts. He's talking about the Mexican military is massing on the U.S. border. And this is in California, in the Baja area. And he came out with this information yesterday, Sunday, June 18. No word has been given from the U.S. government about the Mexican military right on the border and massing with troops and equipment in the Baja California area. And what is being said by these Mexican groups, this translation is waiting for the war cry. So that's going on. And the U.S. military, according to Hal Turner, is, spreading out all over CONUS, the U.S. Geography across our states. So we have things going on. We're having this information verified by multiple sources and by Patriot subscribers. The U.S. military is spreading out across the U.S. The U.S. military anticipates a takedown, and that's what was meant by that statement from Ezra Cohen Watnick, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for President Trump, that the White House is down, that this is looks like a takedown of the deep state, the JB actor puppet for the deep state. So that's going on along with the U.S. military spreading out, taking troops and equipment from military bases, and also practicing drills in the event that a kinetic, a hot shooting war begins inside the U.S. We also have in Israel what appears to be also the coalition of the Israeli people plus the Israeli military against the existing deep state government. So it's good to prep and pray. And so a short prayer today will be the Lord's Prayer according to the direction of the Lord from Matthew chapter 6, and there's also a version in Luke. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us of our transgressions, as we forgive those who transgress against us. Lead us around temptation, and deliver us from evil. For this is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever for you, our God. And I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there. Continue to pray. It's good to prep and keep your powder dry, baby. And it's good to remember that God is in charge and He is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.